Several years ago, I was in South Dakota. Had the opportunity to speak on a university campus. And the first night that I was there, we had probably 40, 50 students show up. But the word got out that there was a scientist, a Christian, somebody who actually believed creation fits in with the Bible. And so the next night we had about 150, 200 kids and 4 very rabid professors who had come with one intention, and that was basically to kind of show me out and heckle me. And so they did. They kind of heckled me throughout my presentation. Finally got to the end. Had a Q&A. Just like I'll do this evening, opened it up for anybody's questions. Well, those 4 men immediately stood up. One of them took out a sheet of paper where he had prepared a list of questions. So I looked at him, I literally leaned back against the podium, and I said, "Let's go." And he started asking questions. And I started answering the questions. And I'll go ahead and tell you guys, when I'm in a Q&A scenario, my blood pressure actually goes down. And the reason I say that is twofold. Number one, because I've done it a lot of times, and there is some comfort in knowing what types of questions are coming. But number two, I got the truth on my side. And I know that. I may not know every single answer to every single question, but I know I've got the truth. So as we're starting through these questions, it became pretty obvious very quickly that I was pretty steadied up on some of the topics that they were bringing up. In fact, a little more so than they were. And they didn't like that. And in fact, by the 3rd or 4th question, the students started kind of snickering at the professors. If you know anything at all about college professors, they don't like being laughed at. In fact, by the 5th question, they literally took their piece of paper, wadded it up, threw it on the ground, and then they started to attack me directly. And I remember them saying things like, "I guess you got your degree from a diploma mill," and just really ugly things, which I'm not here to tout my degree, but I did go to medical school for 6 years, so it's not exactly a diploma mill. I stopped them and I said, "Guys, don't you feel like the students on this campus deserve to look at the evidence with their own eyes and discern for themselves what is the truth?" One of those professors by this point had reached the boiling point. And he was so angry, so mad that I was turning their worldview upside down that he blurted out, "We're not concerned with the truth." I literally looked at the students and said, "That's why I'm here." This evening, what I want to do is I want to take you on a quest for the truth. Because likely, most of you in this room, you have been probably exposed to what I call evolutionary hoaxes or lies about things being millions, billions of years old. But let's stop for just a moment and make sure we understand. If this is true, it's true from Genesis 1:1 all the way to the end. And we don't have the privilege of just plucking out a few verses and saying, "Oh, that's truth." Because folks, if we do that, our kids, our grandkids can see right through that. There's a problem with that. What we're going to do is we're going to take a little journey to see, what does the evidence really show? Is it showing millions or billions of years old? Or is it possible the evidence really does fit with God's Word? Tonight we're starting with the topic that they offer our children, our grandchildren on a grand scale. If you want to indoctrinate a young person in the theory of evolution, you don't start with Big Bang cosmology. You don't start with all the theoretical science. Here's what you start with: dinosaurs. Because kids absolutely love them. And if you can get a kid hooked on a dinosaur, and at the same time, if you can train that kid to think the dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, you've already opened the door to evolution. So I want you to go with me this evening on a quest to look for the truth. We're going to start in Montana. Place called the Hell Creek Formation. If you look at the screen, you'll notice there is a red dot. That red dot actually represents the place that we were. The Hell Creek Formation is actually bigger than that. It's quite a bit bigger. The reason we're going to start there is because if you want to see anything about dinosaurs, this is the place to go. Dinosaur footprints, dinosaur bones, all kinds of skin impressions. So several years ago, I took my family, took my middle son on a dinosaur dig. I met a lady by the name of Marge, and you'll see her picture here on the screen. I would show you some video with Marge, but Marge, her language is a mixture between a sailor and a Cajun. It's a little spicy. This is Marge. She gave us permission to film all over her particular ranch, thousands of acres. I called her beforehand. I told her, I said, look, I need you to understand right up front, I'm a creationist. I don't think dinosaurs have been dead that long. She laughed. She said, hon, I know they haven't. She went on to call me sugar and baby about 37 times. I thought, this lady grew up in the South. She said, I got all kinds of stuff I want you to see. And she did. In fact, while we were there, she showed us her quote-unquote garage that was a better museum than some of the museums in large cities. She's got all kinds of amazing dinosaur stuff. We loaded up at a couple of Suburbans, had a film crew, we headed out. And what we were looking for is anything that would kind of point us in the right direction. What do we really know? And so Marge began to show us how to dig. In fact, she shared with my two youngest children, here's how to find scales, here's how to find teeth from these animals. And they're quite literally all over the place. I remember very, very fondly my kids learning how to find dinosaur scales, putting them in bags, collecting them. We found all kinds of dinosaur bones while we were out there. This is a picture of me and my middle son Reese as we were uncovering one of the bones out there. While we were out there, Marge is sharing with me, she said, you know, this is the area where a guy by the name of Mark discovered his Triceratops horn. Now, I knew the Mark she was talking about. I didn't think it could be the same Mark. I said, you're not talking about Mark Armitage, are you? She said, yeah, right over there on that ridge. She said, that's where he found his Triceratops horn. So here's what we did. We folded up our cameras. We gathered everybody together. We headed out over on that particular area because I knew who she was talking about. I've been following this guy for months in the news. He worked in a California laboratory for over 20 years as a microscopist. Meaning, he's a guy that looks in microscopes. He's a scientist. In his spare time, here's what he liked to do. He liked to go fossil hunting. In particular, that ridge right there. She showed us exactly where he had lifted this particular Triceratops horn from. We took pictures. In fact, it was right around that time that she whipped out some gallon-sized Ziploc bags. She started handing them out. She said, Tell you what, anything you find you want to take home with you, you just take it home. Which, if you know anything at all about archaeology, that's a pretty big deal. Usually you don't get to keep anything. Now, I showed you a picture of Marge with my daughter. I have no reason, I don't know why, to this day, I still don't know why, but for some reason, Marge loved my daughter Claire. She walked over to one of the suburbs. She grabbed, you remember those old plastic ice cream buckets? She had one that was quite literally filled to capacity with Dinosaur. Bones, teeth, skin impressions, all scale. Hands it off to my daughter and said, "Here, hon, you take this home." To which I said, "Give that to your dad." While we're out there, I told her, I said, "I would love to get in touch with Mark." And she smiled. She said, "You know I got his number, don't you?" And I tell people, I was like a teenage girl at a Justin Bieber concert. I knew what this guy had found. He lifted out a triceratops horn that had soft tissue in it. Now, that may not seem like a big deal to you, but how do you have soft tissue in a fossil if it's 65 million years old? By the way, that would be 65 million Montana winters, which are not like North Carolina winters, by the way. He published his find. Loaded up, got it peer-reviewed. The day that it came out online, the university fired him. In fact, one of the other professors walked into his laboratory and said, "We will not have your religion in our department." I need everybody in this room to understand, he never one time mentioned God, never mentioned creation. All he simply did was report what they had discovered. So I called him. I said, "Mark, you don't know me. We're putting together a documentary. We're on a quest for the truth. I don't think dinosaurs have been dead that long. I would love to interview you." And so he told me, he said, "Brad, I'm doing a presentation in California." He said, "If you come, not only will I let you interview," he said, "I'll bring some of the tissue." And so he did. In fact, he brought his microscope, set them up. We spent quite literally hours looking at, he brought forceps where we could play with it. Folks, it's spongy. It's soft tissue. He's got cells that are so well preserved that he's had 2 laboratories offer to culture them. Now, let me make sure you understand what that means. That means they think they can make them grow. Now, if you got laboratories that are offering to culture that material, it hadn't been dead for millions and millions of years. Again, as you look at these beautiful pictures, beautiful cells, ask yourself, would that really last through 65 million Montana winters? And the answer is no. It's not going to last that long. He knows that my area of specialty is neurology. I studied quite a bit on the brain, the spinal cord. He sent me some images where they found nerve cells in dinosaur tissue. Nerve cells still able to actually conduct a signal, by the way. From there, we hopped on a plane and we went to the Colorado-Utah border. The Colorado-Utah border is a place called the Dinosaur National Graveyard. Again, here's what we're looking for. We're looking for anything that will help us understand, does this evidence fit a biblical picture? Or does it fit what is so commonly in the textbooks? When you go there today, right literally on the edge of the 2 states, it's a massive national park. Let me encourage you, if you ever get a chance, you're ever in the area, take a side trip, check it out. Because not only are you going to see a couple of really cool dinosaur bones, you're going to see entire slabs that have hundreds, if not thousands, of dinosaur fossils in them. Now, as you look at that slab of rock with all kinds of dinosaur fossils in it, ask yourself, what would do that? What would take hundreds upon hundreds of dinosaurs and instantly fossilize them? And by the way, some of them are kind of big. When you go there today, there's a little ranger station, and they've got a mural of dinosaurs being swept away by water. And underneath is a placard. Notice what it says. After a seasonal, what's the next word? Flood. Now, they would go on to add millions of years, but the point being, they recognize you're not going to get a 40-ton animal up off the ground, slam it into limestone rock without a whole lot of water. Which, by the way, does this book talk about water? Like, does it talk about, say, a global flood that would help us explain how you could get that many animals in that location fossilized quickly? Yeah. Because in order for something to be fossilized, it's not just like a deer out here on the highway that gets hit, it's laying on the side of the road. Have you ever noticed that a deer that gets hit, it doesn't fossilize? First, it gets picked apart by buzzards and other weird animals. And then it starts to get basically decomposed by bacteria, by different kinds of organisms. And after you driving past it for several weeks, there's not a whole lot left, except maybe some bones. And then even eventually those bones start to go away. Not so with a fossil. What happens with the fossil is that thing is covered rapidly where bacteria and animals cannot cause the decay and the decomposition. So you got to have lots and lots of water. So Mark Armitage showed me very clearly, you got soft tissue in dinosaurs. That doesn't match what the textbooks say. Dinosaur National Graveyard is pointing back to some kind of a massive flooding event. But I'm still in the back of my mind wondering, could it have been a long, long time? Could it? So we go to the UK, United Kingdom, Europe. Get in a car, drive up north through what's called the Lake District. There's a little town on the north side of the Lake District called Carlisle where this cathedral sits. By the way, that cathedral is older than the United States of America. The reason I know that is because there are people buried in the floor of that cathedral. In fact, under that carpet, there's a guy by the name of Richard Bell. He died in 1496, and he's not the oldest one there. Now, in order for you to appreciate what I'm about to say, I need you to understand the word dinosaur did not come into existence until the year 1845. Came up by a guy by the name of Sir Richard Owen. He took two Greek words, dinos, soros, put them together, translated by him as fearfully great lizard. That was in 1845. Richard Bell died roughly 350 years before that. When you go there today and you have them roll up that carpet, or if you have 4 small children that will do it for you and don't know any better, you get down on your hands and your knees, you start looking, you can start identifying things like dogs, fish, birds. By the way, that carpet has actually been laid there because foot traffic was starting to wear down these bronze strips, you see. But y'all, besides the dog, the fish, the birds, you also see things like dinosaurs. 350 years before the word even came into existence. Now, how in the world did they know what dinosaurs look like if they'd never ever seen them? From there, we leave the Carlisle Cathedral. We go over to Mother Shipton's cave in England. Again, searching for the truth. What is the truth? What is the earth really trying to tell us? Today, when you go into this particular cave, you're going to notice all kinds of different things that are tied off on a string. You'll hear the water running. And you're going to see things like teddy bears, tennis rackets, hats, all kinds of different things. And the reason that they're tied off like you see inside this cave is because you can come back a few weeks later and they are completely encased like a stalactite. They're rock hard. It's the only time that my children have seen their father buy 2 teddy bears for himself. A lot of times we'll travel with them. I'll hand them out, kind of show them to folks, let you pass them around, and I always say the same thing: don't break my teddy bear. Because they're quite literally, they're rock hard. Now, follow me for just a minute. Most of you in here have probably been in a cave. You've seen the stalactites, the stalagmites, and you've heard somebody say, don't touch those because the oil of your finger will slow down and it takes millions of years. Well, we know that's not the case today. In fact, if you look on the screen, you'll notice they got a picture of a brand new teddy bear. These are the ones just like I purchased. After 1 month, you'll notice it's pretty crusted over. After 2 months, no fuzz showing. After 3 months, it's rock hard. It is completely encased, just like a stalactite. And that's not the only thing they've ever covered. We go there today, you see all kinds of things from hats, people's purses, to stuffed dinosaurs, by the way. So now I'm starting to put a picture together, realizing, wait a second. Okay, even the aging process that they're talking about taking millions of years, that's not what we see in real life. All right. What about their timeline? So again, we hop on a plane, we go to Texas. We go to Texas because in a lockbox in Texas, there's a fossil of this thing right here, a trilobite. Now, trilobites are supposedly, according to evolutionists, one of the oldest things out there. They call them index fossils because they say this is what everything came from. If you find one of these, you are roughly in 500 or 600 million years old. So if you look on the screen, you'll notice a trilobite here at the bottom. And there we go. Up here, you've got early fish, then we've got dinosaurs coming in, early mammals. We would be way up here at the top of the screen if the evolutionary timeline is correct. Now, do I think that they're using this thing to teach evolution today? Yeah, I was in Oklahoma not long ago. They slipped up. They let me teach in a public school. I asked them to bring me their science book, and yep, there he was. Why did I go to Texas? I went to Texas because I've been told that there was a fossil of a trilobite embedded in the sandal print of a human being. Not just one, by the way, there's actually 2 of them. Folks, I've seen it. Literally had them take it out of a lockbox. The guy who owns it, he told me, he said, Brad, I've been offered over $1 million for it. He said, I even had an evolutionist tell me to my face, all he wanted to do was destroy it. Now think about that for just a minute. Why would they want to destroy it? Well, go back to their timeline for just a minute. You've got a human, which, if I can get my pointer working, way up here, and a trout, you just collapse their entire column. One fossil just wiped away 500 million evolutionary years. And again, there's no getting around it. You can actually see the sandal stitching on this thing. It's real. You say, okay, but Brad, you don't understand. I work with some really hard-headed people. They have brought into this thing hook, line, and sinker. They're the kind that need like 2x4 against the forehead evidence. And some of y'all know what I'm talking about. To which I'd say, no problem. Let's go to Cambodia for a second. Angkor Wat. It's a Buddhist temple that was built roughly 800 years ago. So again, let me remind you, the word dinosaur came into existence in 1845. This is roughly 800 years ago this thing was built. It had grown completely over by vegetation, had been abandoned. They discovered this temple. They came in with what you and I would call industrial strength Roundup. Pulled all the vegetation away, cleaned it up. That's when they saw the designs carved into rock. Things like, for instance, if you look at the top right, you'll notice this guy right here, that's a monkey. You see his face, his front legs, his back legs, tail kind of going up behind him. This guy right here, some of you may have on your wall at home. You see his antlers, front legs, tail in the up position. That would be a deer. But the artist didn't just stop with things like monkey and deer. He also carved things like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs that are so detailed, a 10-year-old child can tell me what kind that is. It's a stegosaurus, by the way. Now, folks, how did a carver 800 years ago working on a Buddhist temple know what that thing looked like if he'd never seen it? Now, I told you guys I'm kind of trained in science. Had a friend who was going over to Cambodia. I told him, I said, look, I need first-hand pictures. And these are actually some of his that he sent me. But he told me, he said, Brad, he said, while we're taking this tour, he said, I got in front of one of the columns that had dinosaurs on it. He said, I'm shooting away for you. He said, I turned around, was talking to the tour guide, and I asked this question. How do you guys explain this? He said, the tour guide's exact words were, I know what you're thinking, but we're supposed to tell you it's a porcupine. Folks, I've seen porcupines before. That's not a good one. We get on a plane, we go to Peru. Down near Lima, where a gentleman by the name of Dr. Javier Cabrera was given a stone by a native farmer there in Peru. Had these elegant carvings on it. He asked the farmer, he said, hey, what is it? Where'd you find this? And the farmer explained, he said, this is a burial stone that the ancient Incan Indians used to place inside their tombs. Well, Dr. Cabrera set out to find as many of them as he could. He hired a team. They began to open up these Incan tombs. They would collect the stones. He found over 11,000 of them. And roughly a third of them have very elegant pictures of dinosaurs. And in some cases, not just dinosaurs, they got dinosaurs and men. Again, how in the world did they know what to carve if they've never seen it? Now, let me quickly address something. Could these be faked? The answer is absolutely. Anytime there is a chance to make some money, do you think somebody maybe would carve something that, oh, absolutely. But do I think that the real ones have a patina layer that you can't fake? Yeah. So 2 years ago, my middle son, the one that we took on the dinosaur dig that has a fascination with dinosaurs, He came to us, he said, I think I found the person I'm going to marry. He shared her name. I looked at him, I said, you know, you've known her since you were like 2 years old. He looked at me and said, what are you talking about? I said, her dad is actually a Spanish translator that I worked with at a place called Apologetics Press. You guys grew up together. He's like, no, you're lying. So I literally had to go get a picture of them two, age 2 and 3. Here's the best part. Her dad, Melanie, her dad, his name is Moises, native of Lima, Peru. Before he came to America and got his green card, he went to the Cabrera family and he said, hey, we would like to purchase some of these stones. And they did. Got 4 of them. Very real, very authentic, and very much have dinosaurs on them. So do I think that these are real? Oh yeah. Or how about the child's poncho that a buddy of mine, Dennis Swift, discovered in a tomb of about 11-year-old boy? It's got a dinosaur stitched onto it. Or maybe some of you can explain to me the petroglyphs in Natural Bridges National Monument. If you go there today, maybe you are in the Bryce Canyon area, maybe you're looking around, you end up going off to the east to a little place called Blanding, Utah, where there are a couple of those beautiful sandstone bridges, one of which is called Kachina. And it's on that particular sandstone bridge that the Anasazi Indians, they carved all kinds of things. Right now in my car, as I was pulling in here, I'm studying about some of the ancient cultures, the Anasazis. This is a group, they were a little bit nomadic, all kinds of cave dwellings up in that area. Here's the interesting part. You go there today, you're going to see things like bighorn sheep that they carved out, and you're also going to see things like dinosaurs. Fran Barnes, who is a recognized authority on rock art in the American Southwest, he said this. He said, there's a petroglyph in Natural Bridges National Monument that bears a striking resemblance to a dinosaur. Why didn't you just call it a dinosaur? Because if he called it a dinosaur, that means that man and dinosaurs coexisted. And we can't have that, because that would mean that maybe this right here was right all along. Yeah. Let's answer a question or two real quickly. Number 1, did they really exist? Hopefully by now you realize the answer to that is a solid yes. We have found their fossilized remains on all 7 continents, Arctic to Antarctic and everywhere in between. I had a buddy that actually got to go down to Antarctica. Called me when he got back. He said, guess what we found? In Antarctica. Had another friend call me one time. He said, Brad, we need you to come to our church. I thought he meant to speak. He said, no, we got bones. I was like, what are y'all doing? Sure enough, they were building an elevator. In addition to the building, they're putting in an elevator. And in the bottom of the elevator shaft had all kinds of bones. We spent hours, literally, measuring, taking pictures, digging them out. I tell people, if you don't think there's dinosaurs in the church, I got pictures of them. We know they definitely existed, okay? The real question is not did they exist, the real question is when did they exist? Moms and dads in this room, I want you to understand the message that your children are hearing is not a message that is in alliance with God's Word. And the reason I can say that with such strength, how many young people in this room have ever seen like the Magic School Bus? Let me see your hands. Oh, we got some older readers. I love it. Take a look at this picture for just a moment. You got a little boy, he's holding a book. It's got a picture of a dinosaur chasing a caveman. And notice what he says. This story is make-believe. And his friend says, there were no dinosaurs in the time of cave people. In fact, it says no people ever saw a dinosaur. When early humans appeared on Earth, dinosaurs had already been dead for millions of years. People found out about dinosaurs from fossils. Or how about the Magic Treehouse? Another very popular kids series. By the way, if you look very carefully, you'll notice this is research guide number 1. Why is it research guide number 1? Because if you want to get a group of kids hooked on your series of books, use dinosaurs. This time you don't even get in the book. You're still in the introduction, where they're talking about dinosaurs living millions of years ago, and then notice this. Human beings, of course, had not yet evolved. And so without you even realizing or thinking about it, your kid has been getting a steady diet of this evolutionary godless doctrine. Here's the problem as I see it. Right now, by the way, in that same book, they've got a timeline. Dinosaurs over here, man coming in way at the end. Here's the problem. Our kids are learning the dinosaurs died out allegedly 65 million years ago. We came along carrying our clubs roughly 3 million years ago. And yet, is that what this book teaches? In the very first chapter of this book, it talks about the creation account, right? And if I were to ask you, when were all land-dwelling creatures created? The answer? Day 6. You got birds and water dwellers on day 5, land dwellers on day 6. All right? What day was man created on? Day 6. Folks, here's what that means. If this book is true, and it is, then we actually had to coexist, which is exactly what I've been showing you with some of this evidence. Yeah, they had to be here. As far as evidence goes, think about this. You got soft tissue found April 29, 2013. By the way, notice this is dinosaur skin from a hadrosaur. Notice what I'm not saying. It's not fossilized. This is soft tissue. Or how about the fossil where they found a dinosaur in the belly of a mammal? Now, why is that a big deal? Again, think about the timeline that they're painting for our kids. That dinosaurs lived over here millions of years ago, cold-blooded. They died off, eventually gave rise to warm-blooded mammals. And yet, you got a mammal that was eating one? Literally all over the planet. Asia, South America, North America, Mesopotamia. We're finding evidence that men and dinosaurs coexisted. The pyramids, Egypt, you got 2 tablets that were dug out of the ground. Both of them have dinosaur-like creatures on them. Or how about we come back to North America for just a moment. Dr. Samuel Hubbard, who set out on what's called the Doheny Expedition. He was basically wanting to prove the American Indians had been here much longer than we were giving them credit. By the way, any of the young people in this room, if you ever have to do a research paper, I challenge it. Do it on this right here. It'll drive your teacher crazy. This guy, he went down into the Grand Canyon, eventually made his way down one of the side canyons, the Havasupai Canyon, where they found things like their pottery, their clothing, but he also found a cave art. And I want you to read with me what he had to say regarding some of that art. You say, cave art, what did he find? Well, let's see. There was buffalo, sheep, dinosaurs, oxen. Yeah, run that list by me one more time. Buffalo, oxen, sheep, men, and dinosaurs. Here's what he said. Taken all in all, the proportions are good. The huge reptile is depicted in the attitude in which men would most likely see it. Reared on its hind legs, balancing with a long tail, either feeding or in a fighting position, possibly defending itself against a party of men. He goes on to say the fact that some prehistoric man made a pictograph of a dinosaur on the walls of this canyon upsets completely all of our theories regarding the antiquity of man. The fact that the animal is upright and balanced on its tail would seem to indicate that the prehistoric artist must have seen it alive. Now, I brought a picture of what Dr. Hubbard found, and I hate to be the one to tell you, but that right there, that's not an ox or a sheep, but it's an awfully good representation of a creature we now know existed called the Edmontosaurus. And again, for those of you in this room who maybe you're still a little bit reluctant to come on over, let me show you one more that I hope you'll think about tonight. I'm one of those guys, I like to put a pebble in your shoe and just let you worry with it. Look at the screen. You got a three-toed dinosaur track right here. But notice what's in the front of that dinosaur track. And yeah, by the way, this one has been verified by a spiral CT scan. That's a human footprint. How do you get a human footprint in the same strata layer as a three-toed dinosaur if we're separated by 65 million years? Or maybe somebody could explain to me some of the soft tissue that's been reported recently. Like, for instance, out of this particular state. Mary Schweitzer was in North Carolina when she made the original publication. I talked to her. She told me. Really by accident they found it. They were working in that same Hell Creek formation in Montana. They found a femur, the long bone of a T-Rex. Now, I pointed to mine. Mine's only a couple of feet long, right? T-Rex, whole lot bigger. She said they put it in a protective material. They're wanting to take it back to the lab. They rented a helicopter. Helicopter landed on site. They got this massive block of material. She said that's when we realized our mistake. The block wouldn't fit physically in the helicopter. She said, if you think renting a taxi in New York City is expensive, try renting a helicopter in Montana. She said, we realized we were going to have to do something quick, so we cut it right down the middle. When we did that, we were able to fit those two blocks on the helicopter, but we could also look inside where they found soft tissue, blood vessels, and what she thinks are blood cells. Now, again, hopefully I don't have to tell you, soft tissue, blood vessels, blood cells, they don't stick around for 65 million years. I asked her that one question that I thought was kind of pertinent. I said, why do you think we've never found soft tissue in dinosaur bones before? Her answer kind of sent a chill right up my spine. She said, maybe because we've never thought to look. Now think about that. You know, always before, the fossil was the prize, right? You imagine if you find a dinosaur bone, I come running up to you with a hammer. Hey, let's bust that open. You'd be like, no. And yet we know today there's an even bigger surprise inside. She made her discovery 2005. Since that time, we found soft tissue in 16 additional dinosaur fossils. Yeah. To which somebody says, okay, then why aren't they mentioned in the Bible? Which sounds like a good question, but let me remind you, Sir Richard Owen came up with the word in 1845. When was your Bible translated into English? The answer, King James Version, was 1611, and that wasn't the first English translation, by the way. Anybody know what happened to the guy that tried to put it in English the first time? He was burned at the stake, which goes a long way to tell you how people felt about getting the truth out, right? Now, a better question for you to ask me would be, is there compelling evidence of dinosaur-like creatures in this book? That's a fair question. To that, I would say turn with me to the book of Job. We could turn to the book of Isaiah. We could turn to the book of Psalm. I love Job. In fact, let me encourage you, spend some time in Job. It is a book that reminds us we need to be humble. And if there is a message that our culture needs today, let me just tell you, we got a lot of people that think a whole lot about themselves. Job chapter 1, he loses basically everything. I mean, they're literally tapping him on the shoulder. Hey, all your sheep are gone. Hey, your camel, they're all gone. Then his kids, the house that they're in, it collapses, they're gone. Which, by the way, that would bring me to my knees, okay? But thankfully, he's got a very supportive wife. Those of you who have read this book, you know why I said that. This would be the wife that says, why don't you just curse God and die? You got to love a supportive wife. He doesn't do that. Because very soon after she made that foolish statement, you remember Job's 3 friends show up. And for the next 25 plus chapters, what you get is a running dialogue between Job and these 3 guys. Basically, they think Job has sinned big time and that God is paying him back. And so they're trying to get him to repent, but they're also trying to get him to admit what he's done. What did you do? Bildad jumps in and says, wow, Job, man, look at your life. You need to repent. Eliphaz says, Job, man, we can tell you've done something. Will your friends tell us, Job? Zophar, friend number 3. Come on now, Job, you can tell us. To which finally, in a fit of anger, Job burst out and he requests to speak to God. Well, in Job chapter 38, God shows up on the scene. Job chapter 38, verse 1, the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you will answer me. And for the next 4 chapters, you know what God does? He delusions Job with question after question after question, some of which we still haven't answered today. By the way, I do want to point this out, just as a little mini sermon. Job had all this bad stuff happen to him. He wants to ask God why. God shows up, and you know what God never answered? He never answered the why question. He reminded Job, I'm God, you're not. And sometimes that needs to be enough for us. He's asking him things like, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth, Job? Hey, Job, you see the eagle and the hawk? How do they fly? Job, what about snow and hail? How do I make those, Job? What about the dwelling place of light? Job, what about the behemoth? Job chapter 40, verse 15. Look now at the behemoth which I made along with you. He eats grass like an ox. See now his strength is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. What in the world? What's a behemoth? Somebody says, well, Brad, I'm so glad you're here this weekend because my Bible tells you exactly what it is. I've got a little footnote that says it's either an elephant or a hippopotamus. To which I would very gently remind you, your footnotes are not inspired. But I'll go along with you for a minute. Let's look at the description of this creature. Verse 16 says, his strength is in his loins, the force is in the navel of his belly. Obviously, this is a guy with a big belly, right? That guy have a big belly? Yep. That guy have a big belly? Yep. That guy have a big belly? Yep. Keep reading. Job chapter 40, verse 17. He moveth his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. Now, when he's talking about cedars here, it's going to be talking about some of the largest of trees. In fact, when I teach preaching students, I always tell them, picture in your mind going to the northwest sector of this country, you know, where the redwoods, the sequoias are, the ones you can't get your arms around. You say, Brad, why would you tell them that? Well, when you do a little word study in the Bible on that word cedar, remember these were the trees that they used to build the temple? These were massive trees. And yet God is describing this animal. He's saying he moves his tail like a cedar. Question. That look like a cedar to anybody in this room? Not exactly. How about that? Not exactly. That's getting a whole lot closer, isn't it? The problem, as I see it, is too many homes have been infected with evolution. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Basically, our worldview has kind of been evolutionized. And sometimes we don't even realize it. There's words out there, there's things that are teaching this idea, we don't even think about it. I'll give you an example. If your kids came home tonight, they want you to read to them. They're dragging a couple of big old picture books. You sit in your favorite recliner, your favorite seat on the couch. You scoop them up in your lap. You look at those books. Let me ask you, do you read them? Or did you notice the first word in both the titles is the word prehistoric? It's an evolutionary term. It actually means a time before man. A lot of you in this room didn't catch that. And the reason you didn't catch it is because we've been evolutionized. Words like Triassic, Jurassic, we don't even think about the fact that those don't really fit this right here. What I'm going to do before I open it up for your comments, your questions, is I want to give you 6 Bible verses. And I want you to write them down. I want you to put them in your Bible, put them in your phone. For those of you who are old school, put them on a recipe card. And I want you to learn them. But then I want you to do something really crazy. And I want you to share them with somebody. In fact, I challenge you in the next 24, 48 hours, pass them on, whether it be through social media, whether it be through an email. 6 Bible verses that are going to help build a biblical worldview foundation. Verse number 1 is Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. By the way, I have no problem if you guys want to take pictures of these. If you want my PowerPoints, I'll send them to you. But let's get the information out there. Genesis 1:1, I've told thousands of people. If you can't trust the first verse of the Bible, why would you trust anything to follow? You say, all right, Brad, that sounds good and all, but exactly when was the beginning? It's not like Genesis 1:1 comes with a date beside it. Well, let's keep reading. Colossians chapter 1, verse 16. For by him are all things created that are in heaven, that are in the earth. Paul here letting us know that it's a creation event, and that God created everything in heaven and on earth. Verse number 3. Matthew chapter 19, verse 4. He answered, he said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? Now, in your Bibles, this text is likely red, meaning who's doing the talking here? That's Jesus. And he's talking about the creation of man. In the context, he's talking about marriage, but he's saying we've been here from the beginning. In fact, look at how he phrases in Mark chapter 10, verse 6, where he says, but from the beginning of creation, God made the male and female. Let's stop right there. Time out. Hold up. Right now, our kids are being told this earth is 4.6 billion years old. And a man didn't come along until 3 to 5 million years ago. Somebody help me harmonize. If this earth is 4.6 billion years old, we've just come along 3 to 5 million. We ain't been here from the beginning. And so either the textbooks and this man-made theory are correct, or the Son of God is correct. And I know where I'm going to put all my weight. Wouldn't it be nice if we knew who that first male was? Which Paul takes care of for us. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 45. So it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Who's that first Adam? That's Adam of Adam and Eve, right? That's not a trick question. Who's the last Adam? That's Jesus Christ. Why would they call Jesus the last? Well, think about this. Adam of Adam and Eve, remember, he was denied access to the tree of life, kicked out of the garden, had to go work among the thorns. Along comes Jesus, who gives us access to eternal life, and what they put on his head? Crown of thorns. The sixth verse that I would give you is this one. Genesis chapter 3, verse 20. Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living, letting us know all the lineage of humanity is coming through Eve. Now, with those 6 Bible verses in hand, here's what you can do. You can sit down with your child or your coworker, your friend, your neighbor, open up the Bible to your favorite chapter, which I know for everybody in the room is Genesis 5, right? So-and-so begat so-and-so, begat so-and-so. The genealogies. Anytime that I teach this, I always use a timeline because it's very, very visual. And I want you to notice what we're actually given in the text. It says, Adam lived 130 years. He begot Enosh. Or he begot a son. He called his name Seth. So you remember Adam had a couple of kids, Cain and Abel? There was a incident. Oh, we could just go ahead and call it what it really was. It was a murder. Then they had other children. In fact, if you look in Genesis chapter 5, verse 4, it said Adam and Eve had other sons, plural, daughters, plural. One of those sons' name was Seth. And so we're about to follow his lineage. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to drop 130 right up there on my timeline because that's how old Adam was when Seth entered the picture. And we keep reading. Seth lived 105 years. He begot Enosh. So we add 105 to that first number. I'm up to 235. Everybody with me? And we keep reading. Enosh lived 90 years. He begat Canaan. We add 90 to that. All of a sudden, I'm up to 325. And suddenly what you realize is you can build a timeline that actually is helping you understand the age of the earth. You say, whoa, time out, hold on. How did you go from like Adam's genealogy to the age of the earth? Because in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It was a creation event. There were males and females here from the beginning. First male's name? Just giving you his lineage. Now, I do know that there are people out there who like to plant seeds of doubt, and they'll say things like, well, you know, there's got to be lots of gaps and holes in the genealogies. I love those people. Because I just want to tap them on the shoulder and say, as we say in the South, bless your heart. If you got a Bible, go ahead and open it up to the book of Jude, New Testament book. Sometimes I like to say turn to Jude chapter 3 and just watch you. There's only one chapter in Jude. Take a look at verse 14 with me, where the text speaks of Enoch being the seventh of Adam, who prophesied about these men also, saying, behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his saints. So I've got an inspired New Testament author talking about Enoch being the seventh. So I turn back to Genesis 5, where I look back up here on my timeline. I start counting down, lo and behold, there's Enoch, and guess what? He's seventh. Which means if you're going to put gaps or holes in the genealogies, it's going to have to come after this guy right here. Which, by the way, there's not enough gaps or holes in the world to fit evolutionary time into this thing. Let me very quickly show you something some of you haven't thought about. Vertical line that I just dropped on the screen right there. You realize everybody to the left of that could have had a face-to-face conversation with Adam about what it was like before he got kicked out of the garden? Why do I say that? Because they were living at the same time. They were living as contemporaries. That means Noah's dad, Lamech, could have looked at him in the eyes and said, what was it like? But the one that's even more impressive to me, keep your eye on Noah. I'm going to keep the timeline going. So we got Noah, we got his son Shem. You realize everybody to the left of that red arrow could have had a face-to-face conversation with Noah's son Shem about what it was like in the pre-flood world? Folks, we're now talking about Abraham and Isaac, who the promise was given to. You remember God calls Abraham and says, I want you to go to a foreign land. And I am so thankful that Abraham was Abraham and not some of us today. Because some of us today would have been like, I'm really comfortable in this part of the country. I'm going to take a hard pass on that. You know what Abraham said? Here I am, send me. He went. Thankfully, by the way, he went. Now, follow me. Abraham and Isaac could have talked directly to Noah's son Shem, who could have talked directly to his granddad Lamech, who could have talked directly to who? Adam. I actually had to make this particular slide because I wanted you to see in a single slide from Adam all the way to Abraham. I realize it's really small, hard to make out, but if you look, top left corner, this is Adam. First blue line represents everybody who was alive during his lifetime. The second fuzzy line, that would be the flood right here. Red line represents the birth of Abraham. So if you look across the top, you'll notice there's numbers. Those numbers are pulled straight from Genesis chapter 5, by the way. From Adam to Abraham, about 2,000 years. Now, follow me. Let's jump over here to Jesus for a minute. We have any idea how long it's been from Jesus to us today? Yeah, we do. You know how I know that? Because we're living in the year 2025 AD. In the year of our Lord is what that really means. Which, by the way, your kids are learning CE and BC, Common Era, before. I don't care if you call it A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It still hinges around the life of one man. Yes. You realize we date everything by Jesus Christ? Now, again, follow me. Adam, Abraham, about 2,000 years. Jesus to us, about 2,000 years. You realize if I could bridge the middle, if I could get you from Abraham to Christ, you'd have the history of the world. Wouldn't it be cool if that timeline just kept right on going? And it does. In fact, the Bible doesn't give you just one genealogy. It actually gives you Mary and Joseph's. If I had unlimited, be thankful you're not my home congregation. I do not look at a clock in my home congregation, and they get me for like a couple of weeks in a row, and I just wear them out. If I had unlimited time, here's where we would go next. We'd be like, okay, see all these kings right here? Let's see how many of those we found using archaeology. Because if you want a quest for the truth, this is a quest for the truth. The picture that I want to leave with you is this one right here. I don't hear teachers directly yet assaulting Jesus Christ. It may be coming. But I think they are directly taking out the foundation on which that cross rests with a godless theory. And I think as parents, grandparents, as a church family, we got to start speaking up and making sure, number one, that our kids know the truth, and number two, we got to start taking that truth out there. I'm going to press pause because I've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes. Sorry. Not sorry. And let you guys ask questions, make comments. The way I usually do it, if you've got a comment, a question, if you'll raise your hand, I will call on you. I'll do my best to repeat the question over the microphone so everybody can hear it. You get to go first.
I don't have a question. I just wonder if you could go to the slide before that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an easy one. Take a picture. I'll even duck.
I was trying to get a good picture of that.
There you go. That's an easy one. Yes, ma'am.
When I was in high school, just a few 40-some years ago, we studied evolution, but it was never evolution. It always had the word theory in front of it.
Yes.
And I guess that made me think, well, this is just some man's opinion.
Yep.
And I'll just learn it, spit it out of the test.
Yep.
But over the years, I've noticed that word theory has completely
Been dropped.
and there's been no proof of their theory.
That's exactly right. In fact, so her point is, she said when she went to school so many years ago, that it was the theory of evolution. It was taught that way. Basically, one guy's idea that, hey, this is what's going on. But over the years, that the word theory has kind of been lost, and now it's basically the fact of evolution. When the reality is, the more we learn about science, the human body, the cosmos, the more complex stuff really is. I'm not by any means picking on her or her age, but just during your lifetime, the amount of stuff we've learned about a cell. When she was younger, we knew the organelles, the major organelles. You got mitochondria, Golgi, nucleus, big stuff that you can lay. Since then, we can use like scanning electron microscopes and really look inside a cell and see all the different molecular motors, voltage-gated channels, ion-gated channels, all the bilipid membrane, everything. And we realize that's like New York City. It's crazy how complex it is. And you got all these proteins folding in specific ways. And what we've really learned in the 30, 40 years is there's no way that kind of stuff happens by chance. And so as our knowledge increases, realistically, the possibility for everything to have evolved by chance gets smaller, smaller, smaller. I mean, we're to the point now, most realistic scientists know that's a joke. There's no way. And when I ask them off the record, they realize there's no way. Yes, sir?
I never knew that the word dinosaur became a word in 1825.
You didn't know the word dinosaur, so you learned something. So I'm going to go ahead and show you one more slide because I want you to do some studying, okay? You ready? Are you taking notes? Job 41, there's another creature that's introduced in the Bible. He's called a Leviathan. And I want you to read, starting about verse 18, a description of that dude. And you can come back tomorrow and tell me what you think he is. All right. Other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Maybe I'm sure John Clayton.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got your younger and your older people. Why can't, and these are people in the brotherhood. I'm assuming that everybody's honest. They're seeking the truth. Why don't you guys get together and hash it out?
So the short answer is we've kind of tried. He and I have actually had some private communication back and forth. And I have shared with him, in fact, I'm going to back up and share with you guys again, verses like this one. And I've pointed out, this verse doesn't jive with your worldview. You can't have like an ancient bazillion-year-old whatever and have us here from the beginning. And I don't want to misspeak or characterize him in a negative way in any way, but he basically kind of came back as he feels like if we don't embrace evolution, we're doing the kids injustice because they're going to be taught it anyway. And I firmly feel like, you know what? Let's teach them the truth. Let's just teach them what's in the Bible and show them the evidence.
That's what a lot of people have done is a lot of Christians, they've subscribed to the theistic evolution approach.
Yet,
God did it. We don't know how long it took him, but he did it. Don't worry about the details. Let's go on with Jesus Christ and the cross on forward. Ancient dispensationism.
let me point out a couple of things real quick. Did God create a mature creation?
Yes.
Absolutely. There's not anybody in here that would think if he commanded Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, that means they had to be of that age. Or how about this? He says you can eat of the fruit of any of these trees except this one. What were the trees already bearing? How old were the trees? 3 days old. I mean, they were created on day 3. He's telling Adam on day 6, which means if you'd have gone out with a chainsaw and cut one of those trees down, how many rings would it have? We don't know. Because God created them a mature creation. There was already gold, onyx here. By the way, you don't need gold and onyx to garden. I'll let you chew on that one tonight. That'd be another little pebble in your shoe. Yes, he definitely created a mature creation. Do I think he created it in 6 literal days? Folks, the Bible doesn't get more plain. I mean, evening and morning were the first day. Evening, morning. If that doesn't answer it for you, go to Exodus chapter 20, verse 11, handing out the 10 commandments, and he says, for in 6 days the Lord made the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that in it is. What's that leave out? Nothing. By the way, do you realize that our 7-day week is based on the creation? Yeah. So, other questions, comments? Oh, you guys are easy. Tomorrow night, we're going to start back at 6:30. We're going to do 2, and I'm going to give you a break in between. So make plans to be here. Join us. If you've got friends, family, got coworkers that have questions, hopefully you see tonight, this is not an aggressive kind of format that is going to grossly offend your coworkers. This is one of those times where you need to pick up your phone, get on your computer and say, hey, come join us. Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, I can't be here tomorrow night. Do you have this presentation on video or accessible somewhere online?
Yes, sir. Yes, the short answer is yes. The longer answer, so focuspress.org, you can find a lot of it. I know y'all are going to stream everything, is that right? So they're going to have it on their website or YouTube or something. On their YouTube channel, they'll have it. There is a few videos and stuff in the back. There's some books in the back. We've got a lot more at Focus Press if you want those. I used to say, if you want to buy DVDs, and my kids always get in the car and laugh at me, and they're like, Dad, people hadn't bought DVDs in like a long time. Like, there's still people out there that buy DVDs. But we do have actually streaming stuff as well. We've got YouTube stuff as well. So it has been a joy being with you. It's my hope, my prayer that each and every one of you will leave here tonight and think about being on a quest for the truth. What is it that maybe I don't know that I need to know to teach my children, my grandchildren? Or what is it that my children are being taught that I need to kind of go over with them to make sure they're getting the real story? I think sometimes they're told the wrong thing simply because they're regurgitating what has been regurgitated for decades. But then I think there's also some material in our textbooks today that is really, really presenting an agenda that is godless. When I started this thing more than 20 years ago, I taught on creation, evolution, dinosaurs, atheism, humanism, and Islam. Since that time, we have been bombarded with all kinds of everything from global warming to LGBT, transgenderism, all these other new things that at the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing. They're basically trying to take away any aspect of a God and that Jesus Christ truly is the way. So whether you dress it up in rainbow flag or whether it's green, recycle, global warming, at the end of the day, it's all trying to take our kids away from this right here. If we're going to really win this battle, and it is a spiritual battle that we're in, if we're going to win it, we got to get back into this right here. Again, it's been a pleasure. I will turn it over to if somebody's got a closing prayer.